Hi everyone. Today I am going to talk on the Vibrios and Aeromonas part 1. The next part will be discussed in the next class. You all know that Vibrios and Aeromonas are responsible for watery diarrhea followed by the consumption of contaminated water and also foodstuff, mainly contaminated water, and it may occur in the form of outbreaks followed by attending to the very big groups and the festivals. So let us discuss about this particular topic today. So here the case scenario we have, that is a 35-year-old woman presents to the emergency room with a 2-day history of severe diarrhea and vomiting without blood. Her symptoms started shortly after returning from a festival at her rural area. She recalls eating undercooked shrimp, and symptoms started abruptly with watery diarrhea, followed by vomiting without fever and abdominal pain. On examination, her temperature was 98.9 degrees Fahrenheit, pulse was 115 per minute, and BP is 80 by 50, that's low or hypotension, and her skin mucous membranes are dry and her eyes appear sunken, shows the severe dehydration. Abdominal examination has hyperactive bowel sounds but is soft and non-tender. A complete blood count shows an elevated WBC count and an elevated hematocrit values. A metabolic panel shows hypokalemia, low serum bicarbonate, and pre-renal azotemia, suggesting a case of hypovolemic shock and metabolic acidosis. So, if this is the case presented to you, how to diagnose and to treat this condition? So, this is a typical case of cholera, and what is the mode of transmission of cholera, and what are the various other aspects of Vibrio cholera we will discuss now. So the general features of Vibrios are they are gram-negative bacteria with a vibratory motility, and they curved or comma-shaped bacilli. They are curved or comma-shaped bacilli, and strongly aerobic and oxidase positive. Remember, these organisms are oxidase positive and mainly present in the marine water and surface waters, river waters, and sewage waters also. And some are salt loving, so which are called halophilic vibrios, which can survive at 7 to 10% of salt concentration, and some are not non-salt loving, which are non-halophilic vibrios. And now this how to classify these vibrios according to Gardner and Venkataraman classification, which is worldwide accepted classification for these vibrios. These vibrios are divided into groups based on fermentation of mannose, arabinose, sucrose into 8 groups, and Vibrio cholera belongs to group 1. So like this, the group 1 comes under this Vibrio cholera comes under group 1, and the vibrios in generally divided into other vibrios which are not causing for cholera. And this Vibrio cholera divided into varieties of subgroups or serogroups or serovars based on somatic antigen. Because of the, based on the presence of antigen on its surface, it will be divided to O1 to woman O1 to 200 and O200. Among them, the O1, O139 and the non-O1 and O139 are mainly responsible for the choleric disease or gastroenteritis. Again, this Vibrio cholera O1 subgroup divided into the two different biotypes, that's classical and LTAR biotypes, based on the biochemical reactions and susceptibility to polymyxin B and bacteriophages. And again, this classical and LTAR vibrios are divided into serotypes, are classified into serotypes mainly based on the minor antigenic differences in O antigen. This minor antigenic differences in O antigen into Ogawa, Inaba and Hikojima serotypes. This is a very good and very important classification based on Gardner and Venkatraman for the Vibrios responsible for cholera. Then, Vibrio cholera, this biotypes and their significance, if you see, the classical biotype, these are highly virulent and responsible for 6 pandemics so far in the worldwide. And Elthar biotype identified in Elthar, Egypt, and which was responsible for seventh cholera pandemic in 1961. And Elthar variants also there. They are having both the properties of properties of the both biotypes. One is MATLAB variant, which is also called Elthar hybrid, first identified from Bangladesh in 2002. And another Elthar variant is Mozambique variant. Its phenotypic properties and genome are resembles to the Elthar vibrio, and the cholera toxin and cholera toxin gene, that CTX gene, resembles to classical type of vibrio cholera. So these are the two variants in the Elthar biotype. And then Vibrio cholera, it's a mode of transmission. The source and root of infection is the contaminated food and water. The heavily contaminated food and water mainly responsible as source, and infecting dose is very big, that is 10 to the power of 8 bacilli they are required to produce the clinical manifestation, otherwise called the minimum infecting dose of this bacteria can be considered as 10 to the power of 8 bacilli. And next one is decreased gastric acidity, and usage of antacids promotes the survival of this bacteria, and they can produce the toxin, that cholera toxin, which is responsible for its clinical manifestations. And the virulence factors and the pathogenesis of the Vibrio cholera, if you see, it penetrates through the mucosal layer by its vibratory motility and by producing the enzyme mucinase. Once they spread into through the mucosal layer, the spreading is possible by the cholera lectin, which is responsible for releasing bacteria from the mucosal surfaces from the mucosa, and then after penetration and spreading, they adhere to the intestinal epithelium, and through the special fimbriae, which are produced by the toxin co-regulated pilus, or TOX-R. And after the attachment, they produces the powerful toxin, that is cholera toxin, and this cholera toxin is responsible for all the clinical manifestations. And the lipopolysaccharide, since it is a gram-negative bacilli, it will possess the lipopolysaccharide on its cell wall, but it doesn't have any role, which is the most important contrary point when compared to the other gram-negative bacilli, where the lipopolysaccharide has got major role in their pathogenesis. And the cholera toxin, the mechanism of cholera toxin, if you see, this toxin or is responsible for the production of this cholera toxin, which is a powerful introtoxin, which has got two fragments. One is fragment B and fragment A. This fragment B is responsible for binding of this cholera toxin to the GM1 ganglioside receptors on the intestinal epithelium, and fragment B is responsible for which again, after entry into the cell, it's cleaved into A1 and A2, and fragment A1 is active fragment. This active fragment is responsible for ribosylation of adenosine diphosphate present in the G protein, which upregulates the activity of adenylate cyclase, and this finally results in intracellular accumulation of cyclic AMP. And this cyclic AMP will do all the things related to the clinical manifestations of this particular bacteria. One is they inhibits the absorption of sodium and activates chlorides and secretion, activates chlorides secretion into the lumen. And the water moves into the lumen to maintain osmolality, which results in watery diarrhea. And bicarbonates will be lost, which results in acidosis, which is very common in severe dehydration in case of cholera, and loss of electrolytes and water, which results in hypovolemic shock. All these are because of the production of cyclic AMP, increased levels of cyclic AMP within the cell, which in turn produced by the action of cholera toxin. Then clinical manifestations of cholera after an incubation period of 1 to 2 days. That means very short incubation period. The clinical manifestations may present in the form of mild form in case of 20% of cases, but in 5% of the cases it may present in the form of life-threatening watery diarrhea. But remember, in 75% of the cases, these symptoms may not be seen. Clinically, it may not be manifested. Only in 5% of the cases, it will be manifested in the form of severe watery diarrhea, which is sudden in onset with voluminous and painless watery stools. And these watery stools will have the specific appearance, that is rice water stool, which appears like washed rice water. And it's a cloudy in nature and consists of mucus flakes, and it will have the fishy odor also. These are the typical features of the watery diarrhea produced in case of cholera. Then what are the complications of cholera? The renal failure is mainly due to tubular necrosis. Is possible oliguria, that is the decreased urine volume, and weak or absent pulse. Tachycardia will be there. Here also in case scenario we have seen 115 beats per minute, and sunken eyes, wrinkled skin is seen because of the dehydration. Sometimes it may leads to coma also. And next important thing is the Bengal strain. About the other variants of this particular Vibrio cholera serogroups. And the Bengal strain isolated first from Chennai in 1992. This is very important MCQ for you in the competitive examination. And non-agglutinable with O1 to 138 anti-sera. So whatever the O1, O2, O3 like that, up to O138 anti-sera, with any one of these anti-sera, it can't be agglutinated. So it was designated as O139 strain and appears like LTHR but differs but different. That is this LPS, the lipopolysaccharide, plays a role in the pathogenesis, and also it's a capsulated bacterium, and it is invasive in nature, whereas in Vibrio cholera that's not invasive, it's get attached to the mucosal surfaces, and by means of multiplication produces cholera toxin. The toxin is responsible for clinical manifestations. But here if you see, these bacteria are invasive and cause for bacteremia and also the extra intestinal manifestations. And if you see this Bengal strain, that otherwise called O139 strain, it's replaced by the LTHR biotype. It's replaced by the LTHR biotype in 1994. And currently, a few cases are seen in India as well as in Bangladesh. And another thing is non-O1 and non-O139 serotype, biotypes of serogroups of this Vibrio cholera. These non-O1 and non-O139 biochemically resembles Vibrio cholera O1 or O139, but not agglutinates with the respective sera. So these, they biochemically, even though these biotypes resembling, the zero groups resembling with O1 and O139, by using the respective sera, they can't get agglutinated. And the clinical presentation of this particular zero groups, one is gastroenteritis due to consumption of raw oysters consumption, which is marine or water oysters, causes for gastroenteritis. Stool is watery or less formed, less voluminous, and important point is it presenting with blood and mucus. Abdominal cramps are present, nausea, vomiting and fever are present. Almost they won't present in case of classical or health or Vibrio infections. And extraintestinal manifestations are also seen, followed by exposure to the seawater, which are manifested in the form of otitis media, wound infection and bacteremia. Treatment: to treat this condition, we have to use the tetracycline, ciprofloxacin or third generation cephalosporins. Any one of these we can use, because there are no any resistant drug resistant strains so far. You can use any one of these drugs depending on the indication. And lab diagnosis of the cholera: the specimens to be collected are watery stool. In case of carriers, we can go for the rectal swabs also. So this is how the stool sample will appear in case of cholera. This rice water stool with mucus flex. You can see the mucus flex also. And next one is we have to use the transport medium, to in case of non-availability of the fresh sample, water sample, we can go for the rectal swabs also, or in case of carriers also we can go for rectal swabs. And next one is the transport medium. The transport medium, this should contain the pH of 8.4 to 8.6. The commonly used transport media are the Venkatraman Ramakrishnan medium or the Carey Blair medium, because their pH of those transport medium would be around 8.4 to 8.6, in which these bacteria can survive, whereas other bacteria can't survive in that particular high pH. And this is the Carey Blair medium, which is a semi solid medium with the swab inside. So once you collect this stool sample, you have to put it in this semi solid agar to transport this stool for culture. Yeah. Once you collect the stool sample, that has to be subjected for the direct microscopy by doing the wet mount. So wet mount shows a highly motile bacteria or bacilli with a darting motility, which can be stopped by the flagellar H antisera. By applying this flagellar antisera to this wet mount, we can stop the darting motility of this bacterium. And if you do the gram staining with the same sample, we can see the gram negative curve bacilli, which are comma shaped bacilli, we can see in this sample. And culture of the sample, to culture the sample, we have to do the enrichment of the sample. For that, we have to use alkaline peptone water. In this alkaline peptone water, the bacteria will regain the more motility, and their metabolic activity also will be increased, and we can see the multiplication of this bacterium. Once the enrichment over, by suppressing other unwanted bacterium in the stool sample, we have to do culture on nutrient agar, where you can see the translucent colonies. You can see the translucent colonies in this particular culture medium. And on McConkey's agar, we can see the in the McConkey's agar, we can see the non-lactose fermenting colonies. On selective medium like thiosulfate citrate bile salt agar, which is commonly known as TCBS agar, we can see the yellow colored colonies on TCBS agar medium. And one more selective medium also we can use, that is Monsource gelatin taro colate triptychase tellurite agar, that's called GTTTA agar, where you can see the translucent colonies with grayish black center, translucent colonies with grayish black center colonies you can see, which is surrounded by a turbid halo. Here also you can see a turbid halo. So this kind of colonies, typical colonies you can see in this culture. And next one is to identify by biochemically, we have to do the catalase test to a drop of hydrogen peroxide. If you add the fresh colony, you can see the effervescence like this. And the oxidase test, this is one organism which is positive for oxidase test, where you can see the violet colored within 10 to 15 seconds. You take the paper strips which are dried with the oxidase reagent, and then freshly isolated colony has to be applied on this paper strip, oxidase strip, where you can see the positive reaction like this, whereas negative reaction won't show any kind of color change on the strip. And next one is eye cut, that is sorry, 1 minute. So eye cut, that is indole citrate and urease and TSI agar reactions. Indole test is positive in case of cholera, and methyl red test also positive, and Vox-Proskus test is negative, and citrate test is positive. Here you can see the Prussian blue color change. This is the negative test, and this is the positive test. And here you can see these organisms where the on TS agar you can see the acid by acid production. That's both slant and butt will show the yellow color. Since it produces, it can ferment the sucrose lately. That's why that late is a late late lactose fermenter. Vibrio coloras are late lactose fermenters. That's why you can see the acid by acid reaction on the TS agar. And the next one is Kalrarat reaction. This is very important test. The principle of this test is these bacteria can produce the indole from the peptone water broth, and they can reduce the nitrates also. So when these organisms are growing on the peptone water broth, by producing the indole and by utilizing the nitrates, they produces nitroso-indole compound. This nitroso-indole compound will be detected by applying the sulfuric acid to the overnight incubated broth of peptone water with application of sulfuric acid. So that means incubate, inoculate the colonies of Vibrio cholerae in the peptone water broth, and then after 24 hours of incubation, add the hydrogen, sulfuric acid and the walls of the this test tube, where you can see the red colored ring formation. And another important thing is string test. This is positive in case of cholera, Vibrio cholera. The string test will be done with 0.5% sodium deoxycholate. So put a drop of sodium, 0.5% sodium deoxycholate on the slide, and take a fresh colony of Vibrio cholera and mix it thoroughly. And with the help of loop, touch that mixture or suspension and tries to uplift the loop. When you try to lift the loop, you can see a string-like formation. That is called positive string test. This is positive in case of Vibrio cholera. And sero grouping of Vibrio cholera by using the O1 anti-sera. If O1 anti-sera negative, agglutination is negative with O1 anti-sera, test with O39 anti-sera. And biotyping of Vibrio cholera O1. The Vibrio cholera O1, there are two types are there. One is classical biotype and Eltar biotype, and how to differentiate these two. And if you see the polymix in B, the classical biotype is sensitive, whereas L-THAR type is resistant. And Wilks-Bosker test is negative by classical biotype and positive by L-THAR biotype. And Chick RBC agglutination test is negative with the classical biotype, whereas positive with L-THAR biotype. And L-THAR phase 5 susceptibility is that's sensitive in case of L-THAR biotype, that is fast susceptibility. The fast susceptibility is positive in case of L-THAR vibrios, and fast susceptibility is negative in case of classical biotypes. And serotyping will be done by using the Ogawa antisera, Inaba antisera, and Hikojima antisera. This is how we have to finally identify the which serotype it is. To the serotype level, we can identify this bacteria. And treatment of cholera, fluid replacement is a major aspect of treatment. And in case of mild cholera, we have to use the oral, we have to give the oral rehydration solutions or ORS solutions. But in case of severe cholera, we have to treat the individuals by using ringer lactate or the normal saline. Antibiotics has to be given the severely dehydrated patients, where the azithromycin is the drug of choice, and we can use the doxycycline, ciprofloxacin as alternative drugs. So this is about the Vibrio cholera and its laboratory diagnosis. In the next class, we will discuss about the epidemiological aspects of this cholera and also the halophilic vibrios. Thank you very much.